Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
Hi, this is Ed Cohen. I'm in San Diego, California today, and it's a little after 8 a.m. here. The sun is shining. It's going to be a late spring day here. Temperature 82 degrees, forecast for noontime. So it's crazy stuff, but we're going to go to the beach and have a look at the waves. So this is all about global mobility in the new now. It's crazy times we're having, impacted by COVID and the economic shutdown in some cases. In other cases, it's booming. So we're going to talk about how to do global mobility right. Needs have changed. Company needs have changed. Culture has changed. The needs of people have changed, what with working from home, working from anywhere. Are there relocations that are going to go on? How should they be done better? What's the best practice? We have experts today. Jeff Houck, based in Calgary, has been head of talent mobility management for a large integrated energy company called Suncor, is now in transition. He is our leader today. Jeff, welcome.
Good morning. And
also Kirsten, Parmar, who brings a corporate HR business partner perspective to this conversation. This is a very, very important position, and it's sort of coming out from behind the curtain. HR business partner has always been important, but now it's recognized. Seat at the table, of course, culture, communications. Mirela, Marin is with Zynga in Toronto, in charge of mobility. Welcome, Mirela. Say hi.
Hi, Ed. Great to see you again.
Great. And I want you to just describe for a moment, please, your position, your title, your responsibilities, Mirela.
So I have overall responsibility for the immigration and relocation program at Zynga worldwide. Zynga is one of the world's leaders in online games, and our aim is to connect people through games. We are growing, and as you mentioned, there's companies that have unfortunately not done well through the pandemic. Zynga, on the contrary, has accelerated and had a very successful 12 months. A lot of online gamers taking advantage of sort of life settling down and being a little bit more quiet to play our games globally.
So someday, will there be gamification of talent mobility management?
Well, I hope not, because that
already
is.
All right, great.
Nevertheless, it would still be very entertaining.
Kirsten Parmar, welcome. Tell us more about your role and what your experience level is, and then we'll get further later on in the program to details about the how you see HR business partner impacting the better practice. We'll call it best, better. Build Back Better is taking hold here in the U.S. So let's just say better.
It's always a journey towards best.
Yeah, great. So you're in Calgary, and Mirela's in Toronto. I'm in San Diego. Jeff's in, are you in Calgary or are you
I'm in Calgary today?
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, Kirsten, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been doing this position?
So I have been a business partner for almost 20 years now. Started really applying generalist knowledge in HR to translate the business needs into really a people philosophy or people programs. I like to think of my position as kind of that bridge between the experts that sit behind the scenes designing either compensation, mobility, talent acquisition, other types of programs, and helping translate those to really make sense with the business partners that I sit with or at the table. It's been a never 2 days are never the same in my space, which is really fantastic because I find that I do tend to get bored easily by doing the same thing over and over again. But through work with some of the larger oil and gas organizations in Canada and the US, have dipped my toe into the mobility space and really around how do we ensure that our foreign assignment practices and our relocation practices are really in line with what the business needs and how they can make sure that the business is getting what they're paying for. Because I'm sure Jeff will share shortly, these are not cheap endeavors. The cost associated with foreign assignment work or relocation work is pretty extravagant when we look at it.
So who are your stakeholders? Is it the CEO or the CFO? Or both?
Both, yeah. It really varies. It's going to be heads of various parts of organizations. Whether I spent a lot of time working with major projects, part of an organization where we were dealing with one of the largest projects in Canadian history, building a $17 billion mine in northern Alberta, and working to partner with a number of international organizations to make sure that was effective and really met the bottom line expectations, and came in on budget, which was a real challenge.
Okay, so you're in charge of integrating the tactical with the practical, and what about strategy?
And strategy, yeah, strategy comes into play as well, and I think that's a new area that we're seeing HR is really being that strategic representation at the table to help execute upon the corporate objectives that you're seeing from the C-suite.
Now, how do you measure?
In terms of
anything you want to say.
There are so many metrics that we can apply into the HR space right now. I think as you look at assignment work, as you look at mobility work, how you measure it is really how fast you can get people up and running in a new environment, how quickly you can get them assimilated and integrated into the new area that they're working within. And then on the end side of that is how quickly can you reintegrate them back into your organization once their assignment is completed, and do so without hopefully any hiccups or family or marital impact on the side.
We're talking today about very serious stuff about how to do global mobility correctly, to measure it, to manage it better, to become vital as we go forward into the new now. Jeffrey Houck is a leader and a major voice in this industry for several years with a large energy company based in Calgary called Suncor. Assignment protocols. Jeffrey, you sent this to me, and I've been thinking about all this and thinking about protocols. Well, so what does protocols mean relevant to global assignment management?
Protocol is, and talking about global mobility is, it's the function of. So global mobility is orchestrating all elements related to the successful transition of an employee from one geographical location to another, either on their own or with their family, and all of the integrated parts that go with it, and working with everyone across HR and the business and what each piece they bring to it. So I think today we'd like to talk about some of the first part of the work. So really the assignment readiness piece, and that's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about assignment objectives. We want to talk about role development. We want to talk about compensation, and we want to talk about a very important part, which is the candidate selection. So this is all of the front end stuff we're going to talk about today, and just to get into the meat of it so that people can understand that actually there's the back end and the front end work that goes into this. It's not about simply getting immigration permissions for someone and sending them on their way. There's much more to it.
Okay, Jeffrey and Kirsten and Mirela, let's do a deep dive. How do you select the right people for the right job? Kirsten.
I'll kick it off, and then Mirela, please, we can tag team on this one.
Excellent.
Really, something that we've learned through experience, through bad experience, good experience, is that you can't design the role for the person that you want to go over. It's really critical that you're clear at the outset. What are the expectations of the position that will be in a foreign location? Drafting up what that job description looks like, drafting up what the conditions are going to be like working in the new environment, really applying a flexible approach to understanding what are the in-country needs for the role. So certainly we were very flexible and very lucky to be flexible in a prior role where we could really define a number of different opportunities to send somebody overseas. And so it really came down to us answering 4 or 5 key questions, which was, what is the type of interaction that's required in the host country? Is there a need for continuous and uninterrupted presence? Is the work collaborative with home country team members? And so that would really flag the need for an individual to be present in 2 countries at the same time, for lack of better terms. And then what is the degree of cultural similarity between the host and home country? And I'm sure Jeff will get into this a little bit more, but we know that the degree to which countries are similar to each other, there's a correlation to how easily someone can transition to getting up to speed. Conversely, in countries that are very dissimilar to ours culturally and by practice, there's going to be that much more ramp up time. And so the need for you to select the right type of person is really critical. And it's not just the person who is technically the strongest, it's the person that has the most degree of adaptability to that foreign office or that new environment.
What about the family? Do you select the family, or do you hope for the best?
Family certainly plays a key role. Something that we've found really valuable is engaging with the help of a psychologist to truly assess the readiness of an individual to go overseas. And that's holistic. And it is also dependent upon the type of assignment. And so if you're sending somebody permanently overseas for a long period of time or into a foreign environment, you probably want to understand the degree to which you can send the family. And then if you are able to do so, you need to truly assess that family's readiness for travel and integrating into a new environment.
Jeff, how, in your experience, if you could comment on that, please, and also go a little bit into the role. Is there a measurement of the role and performance, the development of the role, the performance, and then what do you do with those new skills?
Right. So today we're talking about the pre-assignment piece. So we'll get into that real cultural ability to integrate next week. We want to stay on the real HR and the real development and people piece on this. Where we start with this is someone like a business partner, like a Kirsten, is tagged by the business, and they're going to say, hey, we want to go do X. They've got a project or they've got learning. So I think, Kirsten, it would be great if you could talk a little bit about the assignment objective, and then we can figure out with that where those KPIs and the ROI can be measured. When Mirela and I were speaking earlier, those are such important things that mobility as a function needs to be included in at the front end so that we can measure those along the way and work with that business partner. So Kirsten, could you talk a little bit about the assignment objective? And then maybe Mirela and I could get in there and talk about how we respond with some of the compensation as far as the uplift, the GNS, the hardship, and how those might fit into when you're talking about how the reacting to what you need in country and out of country where it is.
Certainly, thanks, Jeff. So the assignment objective starts with, in an ideal scenario, an engagement where the business partner is made aware of a new project underway. In organizations that do operate projects, this would come when those projects are being assessed either first or second or third stage. So when you're really looking at the consideration of where and who you're going to engage with. We found in a recent example where we unfortunately found that we had a team of people working in overseas in an Asian country about 6 weeks after they'd already departed. So this was you learn often better by mistakes than you do by by not having the mistakes. But really having HR sit at that table when you're assessing where you're going to do the work can be critical, because there are some countries that are so restrictive in terms of their government, their political climate, their tax, etc., that it's almost it's not feasible to do a project there. And so really having HR engaged at the table right at that outset can really help to form the decision on who will be awarded the project. When we then move to the next step, which is really around to my points earlier around what is the work that needs to be done, that will help to develop the ideal type of role that you need to have in place. Are they permanent roles? Are they temporary? Are they rotational in nature? And that will help you to develop a bit of a sense for what's going to be the cost associated with deploying your staff overseas or into a foreign climate, and help to frame up some of the other considerations that will have to come into play. And it becomes almost a mini project unto itself, where the business partner pulls upon their mobility team, pulls upon their tax and immigration services, pulls upon their payroll support, et cetera, to really craft what that is going to look like in terms of sending people overseas.
Mirela, would you feel comfortable talking about the process of really doing the budget and the balance sheet so that HR can understand and translate to the business what the actual cost of an assignment may be?
Jeff, that's an area that I think we've all struggled with if we just don't have proper policies in place. And I think, before we get into the development of a compensation package for a short-term, long-term assignment abroad, we really need as organizations to make sure that we understand why we're moving people, what are those business drivers, what are the purposes, and then developing a suite of policies to help address all of those different scenarios. And once you get that foundation set, it becomes much easier to evaluate and assess what are the specific needs that are going to be required for that deployment on the basis, is it a short-term assignment? Is it accompanied? Is it unaccompanied? Is it a long-term assignment? Is it rotational and it's really short in nature? And then developing the policies and the compensation package to address how much do we actually need, how much support is actually needed for that individual. Recognize that they are a set of very core and essential provisions that need to be put in place to ensure that first, the individual is well taken care of and is willing to make the sacrifice to go abroad, particularly more so if they're coming with family. It becomes absolutely critical. So, from the development of a cost projection, I think we need to sit and draw out and spell out what are the different policies that are required based on the drivers of the relocation program for that particular company. Then really, I do think it's critical to do some significant benchmarking to understand what is best practice, particularly as needs of assignees and transferees have changed over time, as their profile has changed as well. If we think about a traditional long-term expat, it was a senior level of the executive team, often moving with family, who had a certain set of requirements and needs that may not necessarily apply to a millennial who may be deployed on a 12-month engagement and is looking at this as an opportunity to kind of see the world and experience. So I think developing those policies, ensuring that we benchmark to make sure that we're competitive and they're fair, we're providing the ample support, whether it be monetary or with services extended by vendors within the relocation program, and actually being extremely transparent with the business in identifying what are all of those typical costs to an assignment, having a cost projection template, that you can submit and discuss, not just with the HR partner, but also with the business leader, so that they fully understand that these are the expected cost of the assignment. Now, obviously, sometimes, if the number comes out to be $450,000 because fairly long-term assignment, senior level person, and it's not feasible, then you have an opportunity then to look at are every one of those assignment benefits required for this particular scenario. If I think about language lessons, some people would like to have it. Is it really necessary? Is the common language of business English? Little small minor tweaks that one could make to the budget to make it feasible and affordable. But I strongly encourage that transparency so that the business becomes accustomed to understanding and is not blindsided that a 3-year assignment can cost somewhere in the upwards of $500,000.
Sure.
So I would think that those are going to be key activities that we as mobility folks have to undertake in partnership with the HR partner team, so that we're going to the table in front of that manager, united, fully understanding with full disclosure of what they can expect.
That's right. I think that it's also important that when we're talking about costs associated with assignments, especially if we're doing a foreign assignment, many of the costs are not something that a policy or a program can affect. When we're talking about legislative requirements, such as tax, so that's the personal income tax, that's the attributed corporate income tax, there may be a national social security set up. If we don't have a tax treaty in place with that company, all of those costs are out of control and out of our control. And so sometimes, to your point, Mirela, tweaking something for spousal and family assistance to save a couple $1,000s, in fact, is negligible when we're looking at duplicate tax. If we're in Pacific region where there's no tax treaty and we're double taxed, so we're paying corporate and personal income tax in the home country in North America per se, and we're also paying that tax in the host country where we have no option of it. So these are all things that, if the plan is correct and it's rolled out in a formal manner instead of sort of this willy-nilly per se, the business partner working with the mobility team can go back to the business and demonstrate what the cost is, and allow them at that time to decide if they need that number of assignees, or if maybe they want to switch over to a rotational model or an unaccompanied model. So these are things that are all large considerations. I'd like to talk about in this front end just a little bit learning, and Mirela again. We've got a couple of things that go with our compensation model that come into this. Again, that in order to be equitable to the employee, we've got uplifts, potential hardships, and a GNS. I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit about what the GNS is and how we use that for a goods and service allowance.
Right. So the goods and service allowance is really kind of taking a look at sort of the basket of goods in your particular home country against the cost of the basket of goods in the host country, and really doing an assessment and evaluation and comparison as to whether or not purchasing the same items in one location to another is going to be less or more. And the idea is to sort of equalize the impact to the expatriate in terms of out-of-pocket expenses that they will be incurring as a result of being on a foreign assignment, and really providing them the financial support with the understanding that they would have incurred personal expenses related to buying basic goods and services and groceries, with the recognition that, for example, if you're used to buying ketchup and eating ketchup, it may be a product that in a different part of the world, let's take Vietnam, for example, it may cost 3-4 times the amount that you are paying for it at your local Walgreens in the United States, or at your local Metro store in Calgary or Toronto. So really it's working through an independent source of data that does constant evaluation of the cost of goods and services in locations around the world, and evaluating that differential cost between the location that you're starting from and the location that you're going to, so that we can make an independent determination of what is the appropriate amount of compensation that will be built in your overall expat plan to help you with the cost of purchasing those same goods and services that you would have otherwise purchased at home.
Thanks
I
very much.
got a quick question. So Kirsten, whose budget is this? Is this corporate budget or is this the line manager?
My experience is this typically rolls into a project budget that has been established, and that really highlights the need for HR to be part of the process at selection, because to Mirela's point, if it could cost anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 times a person's salary, that really needs to be factored in at the outset, and could become a deciding factor on if a company chooses to go to an Asian Pacific country versus a Middle Eastern country. And certainly that's really critical, because nobody carries outside of the project would carry this sort of a budget to accommodate, because it can get quite exorbitant.
I think it's important to understand when we're building these budgets, and for audience to understand that when you're doing something commercially, there's always attributed costs that are different than if you were as a person going. So an example would be if you were going to say you were going to an Asian country for a month traveling, you might use an Airbnb and stay in a home or a condo somewhere of your own choosing, where it is, and you shop for a deal on it. When you're doing it in a corporate way, that opportunity is gone. You need to deal with someone who's reputable. You've got safety and security and all those things we're going to talk about later on in another show. But in Asia, when we're on assignment, a condominium is $10,000 a month, and that's what you have to build in. So there's $120,000 of a budget per year right there. That again is not a cost that is something that is negotiable or can be removed. So all of these things are very important to be considered at the front end, which is again the point of this session is just to allow people to understand that the front end work is really something to be considered, simply because everything else that follows it is based on the understanding that we're able to move forward in a really decided way.
And now a word from our co-sponsors. Our programs wouldn't happen without the wonderful support of our advertisers. Here they are.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
Cube Monk, featuring the world's first smart cube. Track your goods with our advanced GPS system. Welcome to the future of moving and relocation at cubemonk.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by heirs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at heirs.com.
Insured Nomads provides protection and peace of mind with health insurance, travel insurance, group, or tailored insurance for the globally mobile. Visit us at insurednomads.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Hi, my name is Christine. I'm a nurse from the Philippines, and I got to know IAS through Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. And I want to thank IAS, especially to Matthew, for helping me get my car stress-free, headache-free. And so I just want to show you the car that I got. So it's a RAV4 XLE 2020.
As an expat moving to the USA, relocating is exciting, but it can also be stressful. Getting a car, truck, or SUV for personal transportation is usually a high priority. That's where International Auto Source comes in. We make getting the vehicle you want for your work assignment or academic program easy, so you're ready to drive when you arrive. Our product specialists have helped over 50,000 expatriates with their personal transportation needs, making us the largest international auto retailer in the world. International Auto Source gives you flexible payment options to buy, lease, or rent a vehicle from the world's leading auto brands, arrange financing on a purchase or lease without a U.S. credit history, social security number, or driving record, get full insurance coverage, and get approved easily through our low-rate factory-backed financing programs. And because we're an authorized distributor of the world's leading automotive brands, our no-haggle prices are competitive, and the buying experience is hassle-free. We'll even guarantee your new vehicle will be ready the day you arrive. With over 20 years of experience in the global community, we are the vehicle experts for expats. We are International Auto Source.
So the manager, Kirsten, sets the schedule of work to be so that it's measured or recorded what is the assignee's job the first 90 days, the second 90 days, 6 months out? And how does that reflect back to all this money being laid out?
So I think we'll probably get into some of those metrics during assignment in our next session. But certainly, as you're preparing people to go overseas, being mindful of what you're asking them to do in terms of a work shift, in terms of hours of work, is another critical component that will build into that cost. For example, with a project in Korea, we were unaware at time of assignment that it is the standard for Koreans to work a 10-hour day, and they actually work 6 days a week, not 5. Our team going overseas needed to be prepared to work those same hours, and obviously there's an expectation that they'll be compensated for those same hours. So that added kind of an immediate 25% uplift to their salaries. Again, costs that we need to be aware of as we're going into and establishing the project expectations for the team going overseas.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think we've accomplished some of the front end here. I wanted to talk a little bit about 2 more things that are consideration. It's just on the front end. We're talking about cost, and we're going to talk about the socio cost and expectations next week. I think we're going to get into that. Here we are talking about the outlay and the planning. Mirela talked about the goods and services allowance or adjustment for that. And then there's 2 other things outside of a shift schedule adjustment. So we've just added 25% if we're going to Korea. And we can't forget that we also have to pay our expats an uplift for doing this, which is typically some sort of cash bonus, cash reward programs. Typically, it could be a 20% on the first 100,000 and 10% on the rest of it on a base salary. So you can see where that is considerable and established. And then the one other piece that has to be considered, and Korea is a perfect example, is that we have to look at a hardship allowance or location. So when we're going globally, just like the goods and services, which is shopped by an independent consulting company and can measure the variance in cost, so that can be attributed to the compensation, we also need to look at how difficult is it from your origin country basis to that host country where you're going. And several third-party data organizations are able to attribute that cost. It could be some of it's to do with security, not always. Much of it is to do with the availability to meet the social needs, to feel that you can continue life like we would here in North America, be free in your movements, go unencumbered, how much you're isolated. So all of those are measured, and those also are compensated through pay. So that the expat, there has to be a realization that although it's bright and shiny when someone goes away, and many people think about this, it is in many cases a huge sacrifice, both socially and sometimes professionally when you're going away. And these are things that need to be considered in that compensation model.
Jeff, I would agree with you. I mean, the hardship one is one that I know I've spent a lot of time evaluating and really help even expats understand what is the intent of that payment, how is it intended to support and assist them, and what are those things that they can expect that they have without even any doubt or difficulty access to in their home country. If we think about somebody from North America, for example, like easy access to hospitals and healthcare, and the hardship definitely is critical in supporting them through the challenges of accessing some of not only those safety and security items, but really the conditions and the access to services that we often take for granted in the Western world. What I would say that some companies are doing is also, as their global footprint is shifting, and they're starting to see a little bit more movement if we think about across Asia, from hardship location to hardship location. Some companies are starting to think about an alternative way to address the hardship payment, meaning that they're looking at, do we just uplift for the differential of hardship allotted to the location that they're coming from against the location that they're going to? So let's say if they're coming from a 10% hardship location and they're going to a 15% hardship location, are we going to give them 15% or 5% on a daily basis? And also companies are also thinking about, do we want to cap the hardship percentage for a particular location? There might be a developing country where an organization is breaking ground for the very first time. Not a lot have been there already to do some of that diligence in developing the infrastructure. And the external data could have them at a 35% hardship kind of allotment rating. Do companies plan to give them that full 35%, or do they say, look, whatever it is, we're going to cap at 25 or we're going to cap at 20%? And so I think a lot of thought has to be there and evident in discussion. If you don't have a hardship location premium already built into your policies, to look at that, to recognize that it's not always coming from a country of no hardship going to a country of hardship. It could be a combination of hardship to hardship as well. And then we've got those individuals that are kind of moving around in a particular region from hardship country to hardship country that might have different rates. And so there's always some conversation when I've got an expat that has been in a place where, you know, the hardship was 25% and they enjoyed that extra cash, and they're now going to a location when it's only 5%, particularly because some countries have said, if the hardship percentage is less than this threshold, we're not going to give it. So there needs to be a lot of thoughtful consideration as you are developing your hardship strategy and deciding whether it is in policy or not in policy, and how you're going to administer that in the various scenarios consistently across the world.
Mirela, that is so precious. And we have to bring this to a close. Jeff, would you give a brief announcement about next week's program and the general overview?
Thank you. Great discussion today. It's nice and meaty and it's talky. I've enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone for sure. Next week, we're going to talk about some of that, again, that assignment work, bringing in our relocation management company who work on our destination services and a whole bunch of the moving parts and how they're able to help us when we go on assignment. We're also going to get into at the front end, now that we've got the candidates selected, we're going to assess the candidates to make sure that in fact they're assignment ready, how we do that, and then how we support them in getting ready along with the business and actually getting out into the world of an assignee in a host location.
Thank you, Jeff Houck. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Mirela. We'll see you next week on Global TV Talk Show. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Great to see you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.